welcome back to the studio. We got a new painting for today. I want to paint this little picture of a lake sunset with sort of in a marsh area. And let's get to it. I'll show you what colors we're using. All right, on the palette today I've got ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, burnt umber, quinacridone magenta, cadmium yellow light, and white gesso. I believe we'll be able to get everything out of these colors, just these few. So let's get started on this sky. First off, I want to make 3 colors for the sky to start with. First is going to be a blue. And for the blues, I'm going to try to use about a 50-50 between these two, ultramarine blue and phthalo blue. So I'm going to start with blue and a little gesso. And I don't need much of this, but that's going to be my blue. Now that's going to transition into a sort of a pink. Let's see, something about, or more of a peach. Let's start with yellow. Add some of that magenta. Okay, a little bit of white. A little more magenta. That's going to give me more of a peach salmon color almost. I think that's what I want for the bottom of my sunset sky. Now the middle between those two are going to have to be, it's sort of going to be a purple, but it'll almost be a mixture of these two colors. But I want to make sure it leans a little more towards purple, because if you just mix these two, blue and orange are pretty much opposite or complementary colors, so it'll make a gray. I want to make sure that I get more of a purple out of it. So I'm going to start with the blues again, add some of that magenta. I don't want to put much yellow or any yellow in this because I don't want to be making green. You don't ever really want green in your sky. It looks like a storm coming. So there's a nice kind of purple. I think that's a little too purple. And to make that a little more, I don't know, I may want it to be a little more gray. Let's see what it looks like if I kind of get in between those. Yeah, the yellow at this point will kind of neutralize it because yellow and purple are also complementary, so that'll lean it more towards gray. I just want to make sure that I don't get a green. Yeah, that's better. Sort of a gray purple. Let's start there and see what we get. I may have to come back and play with those a little bit. That's going to be the primary colors though for the sky. Okay, starting at the top, I know I want to have some blue showing through here and there. That may be a little bit too intense. I'm putting a little gesso in that. Lighten that up just a hair. And this will be a lot of on canvas mixing, too, with this. If I work quickly enough while this paint is still wet, I can kind of blend some of this on the canvas. I want the very top to be kind of blue. I'm just kind of scrubbing that into the canvas. I won't have several coats of this necessarily for the sky because I'm going to have some cloud cover up here too. So I want to make sure it covers really good. If it leaves a little splotchy looking with some white showing through, that's okay. It looks kind of like a sky. It looks like clouds. Then I'm going to move from that into my purple, purplish gray. And this is the more purple of the two. And I'll go more gray as I go down. Just want to kind of soften those transitions. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then the gray. Now this gray is sort of cloud cover, so I'm going to kind of put it in here. Keep my flat brush sideways a little bit so I can kind of get some of that horizontal look to it. I'll come up here with it a little bit. I'm trying to imply where there may be some clouds kind of up in here. And I'll shape all that up here shortly. All right, scrub out the bottom. Wash some of that gray out of my brush. Now I'm going to go into my orange. And this is where I may need a few coats of this orange. It needs to be pretty bright. It's going to pick up some of that gray to begin with. And that's okay. And I'll come back and fix that. Let me get some more paint here. Yeah, it's pretty thin, and that's okay. As I come down with this color, I'm going to go ahead. I drew my horizon line in there. You saw that. But as I come down, I'm going to slowly transition back to the blue. So this is like a reflection, rough reflection of what's above there. So as I come back down, go back to the gray, back to the purple, and eventually back to the blue at the very, very bottom. I do want, however, my yellow to come down the middle a lot. But now that I'm in that blue, let's go ahead and let some of that come out here. Now this is okay if it gets a little bit green because this is in water down here. So basically it's the reverse of what our sky is, kind of reflecting down here in the water. But all of this is going to be covered up. This is underpainting at this point. It's all going to be covered up, just putting some color in there. All right, I'm going to dry that so I can do a second coat and get that orange to look right. All right, that's dry. I've kind of got some more of this peach. That's more the color I wanted that to end up looking like. So I'm spending a little more time with that here in the foreground. Now this is going to be, got a little bit of water in it, so it will show through a little bit of what's behind there, but it'll help us kind of transition into that upper part. I'm going to put some clouds in between here, so I don't really care if it has a perfectly smooth transition, because I'll be able to cover some of that up. But I do want parts of it to kind of come up into here. When I do these clouds, they'll have a little glow to them up there. All right. And I'm going to bring that on down into my water. This doesn't look like much yet, but you'll see. You kind of have to build it up in layers. Okay, I'm going to dry that. All right, I got that dry. I'm going to come back with some of this purple. And it's purple with the orange kind of mixed with it. I may go a little bit more into the purple than that. Gotta find the right balance. I don't want it to be too purple. Somewhere in there. That's got that, it's purple and orange mixed together, which is a weird, it gives you a gray, but I wanted to lean a little more towards purple. Once I put it up here on the canvas, I can see that it looks more orange, but then when it goes over the orange, it looks more purple. So I like it. I want to keep it. And I'm just going to kind of sketch in some clouds here. This is no real pattern to this. I'm just going to kind of throw some areas in here where this is darker. Put the paint on this soft bristle flat brush and just kind of scrub it till it goes away, till the paint disappears off the brush. Just kind of using a horizontal sketch, back and forth, scratchy, motion with the brush. I want to get an area that goes up here, kind of goes off the canvas up top. Where that orange is the clouds kind of showing the reflection of the sun. So the underside will kind of be a little orange. So I'm kind of thinking that this purple is more the shadow side, or the top side of these clouds, like that. Just want to make sure that you go off the canvas. One of the hardest things to do is do something kind of random like this without thinking too much about it. Just kind of throw it in there. But you got to kind of put something on there and see what it looks like, so you can know how to adjust it. And this does take some practice. I won't pretend like this is something that you can pick up and do perfectly the first time. But our minds, we like to have things in order. We like to make things have a pattern to them. And when you're trying to do something random like this, that really fights you. If you try to make perfect little clouds, perfect little patterns, you kind of just got to turn your brain off sometimes, just scribble. I'm going to put something up in this corner. You just don't want to use a whole lot of paint with this, just mostly a dry brush. Just going to scrub what's on there. Okay. A little bit of a weird area here. Gotta get some paint. Try not to have any real hard lines. Alright, so now with my orange that I was using earlier, I'm going to add some white to it. Pretty good bit of white. Gesso. Make a much lighter shade of that peach. And then I want to kind of just outline some of these shapes. And I've made some little cloud shapes in here. Just want to kind of highlight the bottom of them. Just in areas. Don't want to do too much at a time because I am going to blend this before it dries. So do a little bit, wash that out, dry my brush, and then I'm just going to come back and soften mainly the top edge of that. You see that? Just soften that top edge. So that bottom edge is still kind of hard, but the top edge of it softens up. So that's where the sunlight is reflecting on the bottom edge of these clouds. All right. Maybe a little more prominent right in here. Right in there. Dry the brush. Soften the top. Okay. Now my sunlight, my sunshine is going to be coming from kind of right in here. So the brightest spots are going to be on the inside. These areas. I'm not going to focus on the whole canvas. I really kind of going to focus everything towards the middle, mostly. But you will have a little here and there up on the outside. So the more layers, the more times I come back and do that, it gets brighter and brighter on those little areas. So my most intense, bright areas I really want to be right here in the middle. And I think I will go ahead and make a really small circle here. That will be my sun. Go ahead and put that in. And the way I like to do that is I like to just kind of put it in that light color and really dry brush, really soften it around the edges. Really soften it and kind of blend it out. And then come back even lighter with the very center of it. You could use your finger too to kind of make a fingerprint of it. Pull most of that off. Let's put that on again. You may want a round brush for this. You can kind of take your flat brush and twist it for this sometimes. I want a pretty perfect circle. Yeah, that's pretty good. The reason I need this is because I want it to reflect downward. Okay, I'll dry that just a little bit. Okay, with that dry, I'm going to come back with a little bit of a lighter color and a smaller brush. It's just a little detail brush. Now I don't want to do a whole lot of this, but a little bit of areas kind of right in here, right along the front edges of this. where I can have some really bright reflections there. Kind of put a few places here and there. Gotta soften that with my finger. All right, just a little. Then I'm going to, with my small flat brush, I think I want to get some straight yellow and just water, pure water. This is about 90% water. You can't even see the color of the paint on the brush because it's about 90% water, but it's just yellow. And just kind of glaze over some of this. Right over that sun, just some. Just to make those edges glow a little bit. Just that. Very subtle, you can't really tell much about it. Just a little. Kind of put it on, wipe it off. Just gonna yellow it up just a touch. All right, I think that's all the time I want to spend on the sky. Let's look at some colors for the grass or for the trees coming down. Okay, I've got an old dagger brush here that's kind of flayed open. I'm going to use that for my trees. I kind of like that jagged look. So I'm going to start with some ultramarine blue and burnt umber. And typically if you mix these kind of 50-50, you're going to get almost a black. It's not a pure black, but it's about as dark as we're going to get on this painting. From there, if I add just a touch of yellow, it's going to go green. And it'll give me a good natural looking green. I don't want, beautiful Kelly green trees. They're going to look too cartoonish. I want these to be a little ugly, a little bit of an ugly green. So there's going to be a couple shades of them. There's going to be the highlight color. The mid-tone is kind of this green. If we go for the shade for the underside of the trees, the dark side, I'm not using any phthalo blue in this. This is ultramarine blue and brown, burnt umber. So that's my darkest part. It's almost black. It's got enough yellow in it that it's just barely got some green hint to it. And then my mid-tone is going to be that green. And as I get lighter, bring in some more of that yellow for the highlight areas of it. That'll be more what this color is. Ugly it up just a little. You can also use a little bit of this magenta in your greens to tone them down a little bit. Makes them a little more natural color looking because those are complementary colors. So adding the complementary color makes it more neutral, pulls it towards gray. Okay, so I like those three shades. Rinse my brush out. You can use any brush you like for this. Like I said, I've got this old one that's kind of flayed apart. It works. So the bristles are on that. It works pretty well. All right, let's come back up here. Okay, I don't know if you can see that or not, but I sketched my horizon line back in. All that is I measured from the bottom up 6 inches. So this is an 11 by 14 canvas, so 6 inches up is where that horizon line is. And I'll have the sketch for this on the description if you need to use a sketch for it. There's really not much to sketch. But I'll start with my mid-tone green. Of the three that I made, this is the mid-tone. And I first want to put a row of trees way back here in the distance. And I really just want the treetops. I don't want a whole lot of detail to the treetops. Just kind of want to throw in a row or a bank on the other side of trees. I don't care if they have, I don't want to paint individual limbs, but I don't want it to look like mountains either. So make sure you can tell that it's trees. So it has a little texture at the top of it, but not too much. I'm going to pull that all the way across to about here. As I come in, I'm going to get a little lighter. Get a little lighter in my color as I get towards the middle. and a little smaller because this is kind of further away. But it's also right there in the sun, so it's going to be a little lighter. It might make it a little bit, might even put a little more yellow right in here. All right, as I go off to the distance there. Now this over here is going to be covered up, but I'll go ahead and put it in anyway. All right, and back to my darker shade. I want to make sure that it's kind of solid down at the bottom of the trees. And it's okay if I come past that line because they're going to reflect a little bit. I'm going to put some smoke in there anyway, some fog. So that's okay. Same colors. Now on the right side, I want to think about a line that comes, let's say, right lower than this one. Let's say right about here. Another bank that's closer. And let's go ahead and put some of that in. And this is back to that mid green. And like I said, I'm going to start, I'll just kind of sketch in a little line right there where I want to be. So start, these are bigger trees, so they're closer. So they're going to be a little more prominent. Really just doing the tops right now. Okay. There's one. Let's put one right in here that's bigger. And just kind of fanning that out from the middle to make those look like limbs. And one tree that's a little larger right there. And then some smaller ones kind of here that kind of fade off as we go out to the middle. And we can bring it out a little further. I just want that to be more like little bushes, grasses down there. Okay. Now some of this is going to get covered up because I'm fixing to do some fog. About to do some fog on the other side. All right, so first thing I want to do now is dry that. And then I want to do some fog for that far back area. All right, that's dry. I'm going to go in with some gesso and my thin, my small, soft bristle flat brush. And I'm going to just put some paint on the brush and kind of get most of it off. This is again going to be some of that dry brushing technique. I just want to put this in here. And I'm not worried about messing these trees. I got to paint those over again anyway. That was just kind of a placeholder, a sketch. I'm going to put the paint in. Using a paper towel, I'm just going to dry that, scrub all that paint off the brush. And then while this is still wet, scrub out the edges of it. Especially the edge up in the trees. I want that really soft. I don't want any of those hard edges there. All right. And what you're going to want to do is do this about 5 times. Each time, drying it in between, because if you don't, you're just going to start pulling paint off. Each time I'm going to hit it with a blow dryer, I'm going to add the paint, dry the brush, and scrub the paint in. So here goes, that was the first coat. I'm going to dry that. All right, second coat, back in with some gesso. Clean the brush, dry the brush, and I'm going to scrub. Now I want this to be completely covered. The bottom edge of these trees, I want it to disappear into this fog. Sometimes you just want a light mist, sometimes you want it more. This time I want really thick fog. If it starts drying on you a little, you can put a little bit of water on the brush to kind of reactivate it. But when you do, you got to then wipe the water off the brush once it activates. Okay. If you get it, past where you want, you can kind of wipe some of that off. That was the second coat. I'm going to dry it and do it again. All right, number 3. I won't make you watch all of these because it takes 5, maybe 6 times to get it to do right. Don't get impatient with it though. It's something that if you try to rush it, try to do it all at once, it's going to end up looking bad. If you take your time and put one coat at a time, it'll look great. All right, brushes there, dry brush, scrub. And this is a cheap brush. You wouldn't want to do this with your good brushes. You know, you don't want to mess up the bristles by doing too much scrubbing with good brushes. All right, I will do a few more coats of that. I won't make you watch all that. I'm going to stop here and do a few coats, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, like I said, that took about 5 coats, but I got it to where I want it. And it's really bright. It's really too bright. My sun is not even that bright, so that's what I wanted to show you. Is you do it in pure white just because it's easier to see what you're doing and see where you're at. But it's still a little splotchy looking, which is okay, because now I'm going to kind of color it. Now that it's there and it's dry, make sure it's really good and dry. Now I'm going to come back with some of that peach, and maybe I get a little bit of that purple in there, so sort of this color right in here, you know, something right in the sky. Got a little bit of purple, a little bit of peach, and this is going to be, again, 90% water. And I want to just kind of put that over the top of this to colorize it. We'll go a little more purple with it. I just want to color it just a little bit. It tones it down a little. It makes it look like it belongs in the painting. Doesn't stand out quite as much. I know you'd say, why won't you just do that in that color to begin with? Because it's hard to get those colors exact when you're making them solid. It's easier to kind of sneak up on the color. You can kind of put these thin washes over it and kind of tweak it to get it to be exactly what you want. I think that's probably pretty good right there. That looks pretty smoky. All right, I'm going to dry that, and then we'll focus back on these trees on this side. Okay, so these trees are going to have fog at the bottom of them as well, but they're going to have more definition in the top. I'm starting with my dark, and I want to think about how the sun is over here, so the shadow side is going to be on this left side. So like on the left side of this tree, I want to make sure I have plenty of shadow side going on down here. And then I'll maybe make some trees kind of foreground in this area. I don't have to worry about going all the way down with it because, like I said, it's going to have that fog at the bottom. The more of this dark stuff I put down there, the harder it's going to be to cover up with the fog. But I want to make sure that I get some dark areas. And then back here, same thing. The shadow side of these trees is going to have pretty good bit of dark. That kind of amplifies the sunlight coming from the left. All right. And while I'm in that brush and that paint, I'll go with the highlight, the lighter shade as well, and highlight the front side just a little bit with that brighter green. And this is almost black on the left. It looks green when I put it up here because it's got green beside it and behind it, but it's almost black. Put a little of that here and there. Some of this foreground trees in here are going to be a little more highlighted. Let me go back to my mid with that down here. This is going to be covered with fog, a lot of it. Yeah, just a little bank of trees that are closer, that's all. Go ahead and use some water and kind of soften out that bottom edge because it will make it easier to cover up with my fog. It's a little softer. All right, I'm going to hit that with the dryer and we'll work on some fog. All right, that's dry, and it's just like before. You start with gesso. I'm going to focus on just covering up my bottom edge first. And that fog's going to go all the way out here. So this first coat is more about covering and less about making it look like fog. Because like I said, it's going to take a lot of layers of this. And I want that fog to come way up into here and way down into the water. So that's just the first one. And like before, I'm not going to make you watch, 5 layers of it, but that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to put some on, scrub it around, dry it, put some more on, scrub it around, dry it, and then I'll show you at the end when I color it. All right, so once again, it is to a point that I think is good enough, and I'm going to come over it with some of that gray to soften it. And I can go all the way up into my trees a little bit with that if I want to, and kind of blend that down with this watery, thin, 90% water, purplish gray. All right, so I think I'm going to call that done for the background, and we'll move on to the foreground. First thing I'm going to do is throw the sketch in here. So let me do that real quick. Okay, there's not a lot to this sketch, but you can see I got a couple of lines here. These are going to be little patches of grass, and then this is going to be my shoreline up here. And the main thing is I wanted to get these lines in here so you can see how far apart those ripples are going to be. They're going to be bigger as they're closer to me, and as they go further away, they're going to get smaller and smaller. So starting with my fan brush, this is a stiff, natural bristle fan brush. It's kind of old and chewed up, which makes it work better. And I'm going to use that for some grasses. I'm going to go back into that same green we were using for our trees, sort of the mid-tone of that. And with this brush, you really don't have to try very hard. You kind of just hit the canvas where you want there to be grass, and there's grass. See how that works? I've got a little too much water in this paint. Let me get that a little thicker real quick and make a little more paint here. Okay. All right, and I want a pretty good sized bank here. Just gonna kind of come down to the end, and as I go up, this will get a little taller, but it comes to rest right down at the bottom there, and I'll clean that up with another brush. A little patch here, patch there. Okay. I'm gonna come back with my flat brush and just some water, and I can make the bottom edge of this. It'll pull just enough paint to let me kind of create the bottom edge and give it a reflection at the same time. So that works. Pull that out. Now I am going to have a little bit of a sort of a grass reflection. I'm going to get some of that paint with a lot of water and just kind of upside down right there. Just a little. Got a little too far over this way. I think I want to clean some of that up. Water. Okay. Just a little. Then, before that gets dry, I'll take my fan brush sideways here and just kind of pull through that, and it creates kind of a water effect on it. Just make sure I pull horizontally. See how that does? Gives me a little bit of a reflection there. And then I can do you can just use water sometimes and let it just pick up some paint if you want a little more of a small, fine texture in there. Gives you a little cleaner texture. Now that is further away. It doesn't have as much detail. I will go a little darker. Let me go with some of this black, almost black, just at the base of it like that before I dry it. Just that. All right, I'm going to dry that real quick. Okay, and so that grass procedure over there is going to be about the same we're going to do here and here. A little different, but before we get into this grass, I've got to put some kind of reflection down here from that tree. I'm going to go into some of that mid-tone green again. And I don't want to mess my fog up. This is going to be kind of behind the grasses. So it's really just so it doesn't look weird. I'm going to put a little bit of this green in here. I'll go ahead and go over with it, because even though that's going to be covered up by the grasses. And this has a pretty good bit of water in it. I'll wash that out. And I'm just going to kind of pull that, push that around a little bit, pull it around, push it around. I want it to kind of disappear into my fog up here. But it should have some horizontal, texture to it. Some horizontal ripple effect to it. Surface of the water type stuff. It's got so much water in it that it's kind of trying to run a little bit. I'm just kind of catching it as it comes, as it goes down. If you wanted to, you could turn the canvas up on its side to help facilitate that a little. And we'll pull that back in and soften it. I'm going to be putting some stuff in the water over this in the middle, some reflective stuff, so it doesn't matter too much about it. I just need it to be there, because it would be the reflective color of that tree. Okay, all that's going to be covered up. All right, that's going to be good enough. Yeah, I think we'll dry that and we'll get started on the grasses up front. All right, I think I want to start on the right side here. This is going to be my, where the land meets the water right here, right? That's where that kind of sketch is. And my grasses, though, I want to go all the way up even in front of these grasses. But for the base of them, I've got a lot of thick paint on this brush, and I'm going to kind of just tap the areas where I want that to be down to that edge there. I'm not being too careful with it, but because I'm going to clean that up in a minute. And this grass is going to be tall, but the thick part, which I'm doing with this fan brush, I think I just want to stop about there. I'm going to pull up some taller stuff into that in a minute. So yeah, the brush does most of the work for you. Okay. Now I think I'll come back with my flat brush, just kind of wet, and kind of cut that bottom back in there in spots. See how that is? We're going to be putting some ripples in this water here in a minute. Some really dark stuff that's going to cover a lot of this up. Right now I'm just trying to clean up the bottom edge. You want to keep it flat, keep everything horizontal. If you have any lines that go down this way, it's going to look weird. You want to keep brush completely flat, and it'll kind of give you the edge of the land there like it's supposed to look. Like I said, we're gonna make those ripples there in a minute. All right, that's the right side. Let's go ahead and block in that left side as well. Same kind of thing. And these are really dark up front because they are further to the foreground, which usually makes things darker, but they're also kind of in silhouette right up here. I'm not sure. It's going to kind of come in here. Going to come out to about there. Something in there. And this is going to also come way up. So just going to start at the bottom. Throw those grasses in. And this motion is kind of just tapping downward. If the bristles are spread out good and I come down, the tips of the bristles hit first, and it'll give you that grass effect. You got to have enough water in the paint to make it separate good. And you can kind of do that quickly and throw those in. All right, I don't want those to touch each other. But they do come pretty close. Just like before, I'm going to kind of clean up my bottom edge with this flat brush. Clean it off. Use that to kind of pull some of this off. And then we'll put those ripples in the front, and that is kind of the star of the show. These going to be these ripples. Okay. All right, so that's blocked in. I'm going to go ahead and hit that with the blow dryer. We'll put some highlights on those. Actually, before I get them too dry, I didn't really get it good and dry. I kind of started dry and then stopped because I want to show you this. You can take a palette knife at this point if you want to and kind of just scratch in here before it gets dry, and you can create some, texture, some grasses, some things, depending on how much you want to do that. This works good for making branches for trees, for grasses. You can kind of put the heavy paint on and then just go back and scratch around in it. If what is underneath it is lighter, it's going to show up like that. So now when I put my next layer, it'll have a little more detail to it. All right, I'm going to finish drying that. All right, for some detailed grasses, I've got my liner brush. This is 03 3.0 liner, really small one. But long bristles, that's the key. The long bristles will help it hold some paint, and you can make these long grasses. So you want to use a lot of water. You want to get a lot of water in the paint with this. And this color, I'm going with somewhere up in this orange, somewhere in my sky color for this, because I want to get some grasses here just towards the top that kind of pick up that sky color, kind of reflect a little bit of that sky color. And I'm just going to kind of start those in the middle and pull them up out of there. They won't all show up. Only when they go in front of something darker will they show up. But then you can kind of tap around on the bottom edges of them and kind of blend them in with the surroundings. Just some of this light, not a whole lot of it. And I'll go ahead and do that on both sides. And I'm just kind of hitting and pulling the brush up. It rolls to a point, a real fine point, and you just kind of hit and pull up like that. And if you go fast, it works better. And we'll tap those out to blend them. That wasn't completely dry. Okay. See if I can fix where I touched that and get it. It wasn't completely dry right there, so I add a little more paint on that. Yeah, that works. All right, now I'm going to dry that, and we'll do some long, some tall grasses. Okay, so now I'm back in that really dark, almost black color we were using on the grass, and I've got my long bristle brush, so I want to just pull a few kind of bigger, just a few. You got to kind of do them quick. You're just using the last little bristle on the tip of the brush. You're not going to push down very hard. And if you don't have enough water, if it starts breaking up like that, it means you don't have enough water. Make sure you get plenty of water, load it up heavy on the brush, and then use that last little tip of the bristle. Pull a few of these up. Just a few. All right, and then I want to highlight a few of them and just kind of put some spots, especially against that white background. That's going to look really good. And these are just the little tops of the grasses. They don't all have to attach to something. They're just kind of there. Okay. Do some of that on the other side. There's really nothing to this. I want to make sure that I get some that come pretty good up into this fog. Yeah. Maybe one right there. Perfect. And then on those, especially this one way up here, I'm going to take some time to do a couple little spots on it. Doesn't take a whole lot of this. It looks like detail. It's really just some spots. All right. Gonna dry that. I'm done with the grasses. That's all I'm gonna do to those. All we got left is to do this reflection and these ripples, which is the most fun part. So let's do this dry. We get started on that. Okay. Now earlier I was using an old dagger brush that was kind of chewed up, and I was using it for the trees. This is a better one. This one, if you can tell, I've just kind of wet the bristles so you can see the shape of them. It kind of comes to a point like that, if you can see that, and it's nice and flat. I want to use that because I want to get these ripples to have a nice sharp point. So I'm starting with my black, which was 50-50 blue and ultramarine blue and burnt umber. Let's see, and it gives me almost a black. If anything, I want it to lean a little bit towards the blue side. And if it had a touch of yellow in it, it wouldn't be the end of the world because that gives it a little green tint, which we've got already. But this is pretty black. And see how much paint? I've got a lot of paint, heavy paint in that brush. Now looking at where these lines are, see how they get further apart as you go here. I'm going to put some of this, some horizontal lines in here. And let's start further back towards the grasses. So I want this bottom of this grass to be pretty dark. But up there, they're that close. As I move further back, they're going to have more distance between them. So as I get down here, they'll be further apart like this. See that? I do want that to come further back here. And I'm just letting the tip of my brush give me a good sharp point there. And I'm kind of looking at where those lines are. On the sketch, the lines go all the way across. You can draw them all the way across if you want to. I just didn't want to do that because I didn't want to have to paint over everything. As we come down here, that's as far as they are. Okay. Make sure that's good and dark over there on the side. Okay. Let me come on down with the bottom. I don't like how it just stops at the bottom there. Yeah. All right. That's good for that side. Now I'm right-handed, so this is going to be a little harder for me to do on the left side. But what you can do, if you want, I'll just show you this. Just flip it over. I like to paint upside down sometimes. It gives you a little different perspective of it, but it also makes it where you don't see it for what it is as much, so it kind of makes your brain turn off a little bit, which can be a good thing. I'm just going to kind of randomize where these things, how far they start up. But in general, they're going back that way. I want to make sure I kind of get them horizontal as possible. And they get thicker as they go back. And now this, where it meets the grass, can kind of just dissolve into it. I don't need a hard line there. I can fix any of that I need to later. Let's see if that looks right. It's weird, you really can't tell till you turn it over if it looks right. All right, I'm gonna dry that real quick, and then we'll do another version of them. Okay, with that dry, I'm gonna come back with a little bit of a lighter version of that color. I've added a little bit of the orange from the sky into that black. Just a little, and a lot of water. A lot of water. I want this to be kind of see-through. And what I want to do is kind of extend these that I just put in there, extend them out a little bit. See how that works? They're going to come together a little bit sooner. So they're going to come together up here. So this got so much water in it that a lot of that orange will show through. But keeping the distances right, where they get further apart as they go down. And I want to keep the sharp points too at the beginning. But they're going to marry together back here like that. Okay? Now, same thing. I'm right-handed. I'll let that, and it's okay if I go over it, over what's under there. It's all right. A lot of water. Very see-through. It'll dry. A little transparent. That's okay. That's what we want. We want some of that that orange that we put on there in the first coat to show through. All right, and that very bottom edge of the canvas there, I want to make sure I get that covered. Okay. All right. So far, so good. Except I got paint all over the top of my canvas just then. Okay. Let's go ahead and get this dry, and then we'll start putting the lighter colors in the middle. Okay, so now I've got a color that is somewhere up here in my sky, one of these kind of yellowish orange colors. And same brush, but now I want to focus on directly under the sun, like the reflection that's kind of coming down through here. In between where my black is, I want to pull some of this out. I'll just start on the left side and just kind of putting some highlights in between these ripples. And I want it to come to a point on both sides. So these are like long, pointy highlights on top of these ripples. I'm not going on my black, I'm going in between my black. Okay. Now that looks pretty good up here. I think I'll go ahead and do a few more. I may have to get on my black a little here because it closed in on me. But I want it to kind of come up here as well. Even though these are so close together, they're going to be almost like one mass. Okay, I want that to come all the way up there. I'm trying to make sure I kind of keep it under my sun here. Okay. Now that color is good. I like that. I'm going to put a little bit on my actual sun itself. I think that's a better color for it than what was there. Yeah. All right. Now dry, and we'll do another layer. Okay, for this next and last layer, I'm going to go almost white. This is a lot of the gesso with just a touch of that orange in it, but it's going to be way too light for what I want. And I'm going to use this liner brush. So this is my liner because these are going to be much smaller segments, but the same kind of thing. I'm going to start. This one at the bottom will have a little size to it. I want to make sure these are kind of flat and in the middle, underneath my sun. That's too much paint. I want to make sure they kind of come to a fine point when they come out to the ends. So I'm going to make them roll out. This is just the highlight on the top of those ripples. Okay. And again, my sketch is going, but I know because of where the other lines are falling, they're going to get closer as they go further back. So as I get in here, they're going to be really tight. Okay. And then coming up, we'll go ahead and put them real tight in here. They're going to be several. Make sure they're horizontal. Make sure they start and end at different places. Kind of right up through there. And soften them out with my finger. Okay. And this is way whiter than what I want, right? But like we do sometimes, I'm going to put it on lighter and then color it with a little bit of a glaze. You don't really have to think about water, just think about lines. Okay, that gives a pretty good effect. I'm going to dry that and then we'll colorize it just a little bit. All right, I got it dry, but before I color it, I want to do this sun as well. Really bright, right in the middle. It doesn't have to be the full, all the way out to the edge of where it was before. It can just mainly be the middle. The brightest spot, and again, it's way too white, but I'm going to color it as well. All right, I'm going to dry that too. Okay, so now I've got some yellow, that light yellow with just a touch of magenta in it and a lot of water, no gesso. This is just yellow, and I'm going to see what that looks like. That's going to be pretty bright. Yeah, I think that's going to work. But what you want to do here is put it over everything, okay? You want to go over it all, off to the sides and everything, okay? And then with that on like that, now I can take a paper towel while it's still wet and I can wipe off part of it and bring back the intensity of that white, which I think I'll even add a little water and wipe it off in the foreground because I want that white to be pretty intense down here. Let's see how that does. It just made it glow. All right, I think that worked. Let's see if there's anything else I want to take away or add. I think that did it. The sun. Yeah, let me color that while I'm here. Let's take a little bit of that yellow on there. I can kind of cover that whole area with it. Yeah, just a little. Wouldn't even hurt to come down over some of that fog with it. That yellow. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Okay, well, I hope you paint this one. I hope it's really easy. It was really fun. Just some grass, some trees. If you don't like the stress of the clouds and things, don't worry about them too much. Just throw something up there. As long as you have a bright spot that kind of is radiating out from everything, it'll look right. Doesn't have to be exactly like this. The biggest thing to watch out for is the spacing of these ripples. They have to get bigger, further apart as they get closer to you to give that effect. But I hope you try this one. It is a lot of fun. And I hope you look at the rest of the videos. If you go to the full-length tutorials playlist, you can find the rest of these full-length videos. And then we have some classroom videos too from a small class that I teach. You can follow along with all of those, and got several paintings on there you can do. But I appreciate you watching. If you don't mind, like and subscribe, and give me a comment. I try to answer all the comments, so let me know what you think. All right, thanks. See you next time.